そこを俺たちが助けたってわけさ。大体わかったかメアリー。
ありがとうケインズ、アンディ。
いいってことよ。ロンドンっ子は情に熱いんだよ。
適当言っちゃって調子のいいやつ。どうしたのメアリー。本当なの？
おいおい、まだ疑ってんのかよ。そんなんじゃメアリーも大人と一緒だな。エリーのことが信じらんないなんてさ。やだやだ、大人様はガキ一人助けてくれねえの。
そうじゃなくて、本当にケインズとアンリで助けたの？悪いやつを？どうやったの？
For some reason, the term bad people made her imagine that tall, unsociable black man being knocked down by these two children.
エリーは誰かに追われている。外国から小さな3人から話を聞いて、私は迷うことなく確信していた。
A prudent adult would question that decision, but Mary believed their words and her intuition. She hadn't been told a single lie. Her hunch definitely told her that. However, this time she was confused and hesitant. Little Ellie was being chased by someone. A child with no parents ran away from another country. She didn't know what to do. No, she could think of a number of things, but each was so problematic she couldn't act on any of them. Kane is firmly opposed to her first idea of contacting Uncle George. She'd never seen him so determined before.
英国の外に逃げなきゃ意味がないんだよ。ここにはもう悪い連中がわんさかいて、エリーは隠れるのが精一杯なんだよ。それにエリーはカダスに行きたいんだ。行かせてやるのが男ってもんだ。
なんだ。
As the boy fiercely objected, Mary was unable to say anything in response. She was overpowered by this little child. His words were that forceful, sincere, serious. He was probably not being careful, but the words Kane spoke without keeping anything hidden made Mary fear something. She normally thought of them as just two children, but she could fear the fact that they were street orphans who had to live in slums. And in the end...
じゃあ約束だメアリー。エリーがロンドンを出る算段がつくまでかくまってやってくれよ。頼む。
というわけだから、どうかお願いね、メアリー。
エリーからもほら。
お願い、メアリー。わかったわ。知った以上は放っておいたりしません。突拍子もない話だとは思うけれど、そういうのは慣れてきたから。なんでもないわ。わかった。かくまうって約束するわ。約束した。してしまった。本当にこれでいいの？メアリー。
She knew she couldn't leave this to children, but she couldn't think of any other way. Before, she would have asked Uncle George without hesitation, but now she had learned there were things in the world the police simply couldn't deal with. Since the situation was so unusual, she couldn't rely on her uncle. Yes. Someone else.
どうせ全てを監視されているのだから。
Bright white light. Today was a day she could see sunlight. The truth was she had lectures at the college today. She had been absent 2 days in a row. She exited a certain underground station in the West End. She'd also become used to climbing up the stairs at this station. From her lodging house to Soho, then changed to a line heading to the West End. She'd taken this route several times over the past 2 months. During the first month, she'd done it every week, so she was very used to it, albeit not as much as the route to the Square Mile. A borough she'd normally never visit, but now she had to go there whenever she was called. That was the nature of the contract.
予定も呼び出しもなくて、自分から行くのは初めてかしら。
With foreigners, travelers, and the government officials in the corner of her eye, Mary looked up at a single high-rise building. One of London's high-class hotels, the Ritz. In the past, she had loved to look at it longingly, but now seeing it made her sigh.
うまく話をまとめられるといいのだけど。神様、幸運をください。シャーリー、私、なんとかやってみるわ。
So is she going to ask M for help? She didn't find Moran too hard to talk to, but she wouldn't do anything without M's permission. Mary understood that. She had to talk to him. To M. She had a similar conviction from when she talked to Ellie. M's reaction was sure to be one of two things. Either he would accept, or he would give no answer whatsoever. He wouldn't give Ellie over to the people chasing her. Yes, Mary was strangely convinced of that.
無反応でもともとなら当たって砕けてみるわ。そうよね、メアリー。
She whispered softly to herself and stepped into the tall, towering Ritz. The usual doorkeeper greeted her, but once again she was in no condition to talk or even to smile back at him. She passed through a lobby quietly teeming with foreigners and stood in front of the lift doors. She quietly turned down a lift operator. She waited a while. After a few minutes, one came down. She got in and pressed the automatic lift switch. She pressed the button for the top floor.
中へどうぞ。メアリー・クラリッサ・クリスティ。
ザ・リッツ・ロンドン最上階スイート150に。
She never bothered to knock on the door. The people inside always knew she was coming, and politeness and manners felt meaningless around them. Thinking calmly, there was a limit to how rude she could be. However, even though she'd been taught such things, Mary didn't do them. She meant it as a small protest against the contract making her risk her life. Today was different. She knocked. Since she'd come to ask something unrelated to the contract, she couldn't help it, even though it felt self-contradictory. The heavy door opened, and Moran's silent gaze greeted her. She stepped into the luxurious room. She looked at the far corner. There he was, M, sitting on the usual sofa with a cigar in one hand.
黒い男、彼、M。いつもと変わることなく腰掛けて、いつもと変わることなく私を見る。その表情、彼は奇妙な表情を浮かべていた。不満げな眼差し、いつもと違う。そこには薄くではあるけれど感情が。
お前か。
え？
Her thoughts almost stopped. The human form she definitely saw in the center of her vision almost lost meaning. What? What was she seeing? She saw something she couldn't believe. She wondered if she was dreaming. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. She knew she was standing on top of a carpet in reality.
でも、嘘。あの冷血感がこんな顔をするの。
What face?
信じられない。私はもう一度夢かどうか疑って。
まあ噂をすれ
Oh,
ば
she's here too, huh?
というやつね。随分とまた可愛いじゃない。彼女でしょ。本当に黄金瞳なのね。実物を見るのはこれで2度目だわ。
The second time? Who? Someone was next to M, standing. Her demeanor implied a great deal of confidence. Mary thought of Viola for a moment, but this woman was different. She felt more coquettish. Mary recognized the scent of sweet perfume, a rose perfume.
暗めのドレスに身を包んだ人。艶やかな唇がひどく印象的に思えて。誰？私は彼女を見つめてしまう。ここに知らない人。
There was a single woman there, intelligent eyes, a charming expression. The smile directed at her made her fear that the woman was an adult. Strongly, Mary felt herself being overpowered. Was she weak around an adult woman? No, not that. She'd never felt that. Something she never felt from Mrs. Hudson. It felt a little like Lady Claudia, but that wasn't it either. She'd never felt like this before.
感じたことのないもの。でも、私はこの感じを知ってる。少し似ている。顔立ち。いいえ。目元。ほんの少し。
Familiar? Why might that be?
誰かに。少し。失礼しました。ご挨拶するのが遅れてすみません。ごきげんよう。はじめまして。レディ。
ごきげんよう、メアリ・クラリッサ。私はジェーン・ドゥ。彼と同じ組織のエージェントをしているの。随分とこの男がお世話になっているそうね。お疲れ様、メアリ。彼の相手は大変でしょ。何を考えているかもわからないものね。
ごきげんよう、レディ・ジェーン・ドゥ。いえ、私は別に何も。
She felt overpowered. Still, who was this person? An agent? But she was speaking so kindly. Who? Yes, a name. Jane Doe. What? That couldn't be her real name. That was a name used to refer to a nameless woman. She tried to ask why the woman would give such a name, but she felt overpowered by her smile. Mary still couldn't help but feel a resemblance. It shouldn't have been possible, but...
牧年人の相手をするのは大変でしょうね。同情するわ、メアリー。腹の立つことがあったら怒ってあげなさい。そうでもしないと聞かないんだから。
何この反応。
For some reason, didn't say silence, even though he always cut off Mary or Moran when they talked for too long. She stole a glance at Moran. Their eyes didn't meet. Moran was standing next to the door, like a man guarding a gate, not moving a muscle. Mary felt something, a strange tension filling the room. Was it just her feeling it? It wasn't M, but it couldn't be Moran, right?
本当にこの男と来たら不愛想で冷たくて冗談の一つも言わなくてつまらない男ねえ。あなたたちメアリー、モラン、そんなに我慢していると体に毒よ。息抜き毒抜きしてる？
息抜き毒抜きですか？そのいえ、私は
Mary could answer the woman's question. She only moved her mouth around to make a voice that didn't form words. Like a young student questioned by a teacher, she felt strongly and clearly that she wasn't acting the way a mature lady should. She became embarrassed. She knew it was rude, but she looked down.
あらまあ、その様子だとできてないみたいね。これじゃ計画の遂行も心配だわ。ね、M？私、ロンドンの東流の間の宿決めていなかったのだけど、この子のところにするわ。いいわね。
ミス・ジェーン、問題があります。それは
何？私が総帥代理人の指令を受けていること、あなた分かっていて？この牧年人が首を縦に振らないものだから、私がこうして派遣されてきたことへの意味、あなたなら分かるはずね。そうよね、綺麗なモラン。
はい。
Moran was almost as stubborn as M himself, but she was overpowered by that smile. Mary's eyes widened. She had no words. That conviction one day went to Arthur's. Moran had been quite firm then, but she seemed to be dancing in the palm of the woman's hand. How could that woman...
誰なのこの人。それに彼にこんな風に言葉をかけて親しげ、そう表現していいのかわからない。ただ
Maybe there were a
彼らの
couple
距離が
once?
近い感じがする。少なくとも私よりは。
M、いいわね。あなたにこき使われてかわいそうな女の子を私の前に出したあなたのミスね。
ああ、好きにするがいい。お前にはその権限があるようだ。お前のあらゆる行動は俺に左右されない。お前が奴に委任されているなら。
よろしい。お分かりのようで結構。それじゃあメアリー、
はい。
しばらくあなたのところに泊めてもらうわね。よろしく、メアリ・クラリッサ。
私のところ泊まる？
メアリの身柄は私の預かりに変えるから、監視の目も外して。
I think her bed is too small for 3
影
people.
人間。あれ、私とっても嫌いなの。お願いね、M。
ああ。
Stunned. She was stunned. M agreed to all of her requests, staying at Mary's lodging house, removing his shadow man. Mary was supposed to be in contact with him, but Jane was allowed these things so easily. Mem allowed them.
私は混乱してしまう。何が一体どうなっているのか。待って、私は用があってここへ来たの。
あなたのことは聞いてるわ、メアリー。大変な苦労をしているようね。でも安心なさいな。しばらくは私がそばにいてあげるから。
She said that softly. Mary gazed at the face of the woman smiling at her. The unexpected situation puzzled her, but Mary couldn't help thinking. Her voice was different, her face was different, but she recognized something in that smiling face. It resembled Viola's, but it felt completely different.
表情が似ていると私は思う。さっきよりも強く。シャーリー、いいえ違う。この笑顔はもっと別の。